Hi everybody, and welcome to the Royal Chess YouTube channel. My name is Kanovsky, and this is part 6 of my serial about one of my most beloved chess players, Akiba Rubinstein. Today I've got for you another very nice win by Akiba Rubinstein, and today it would be a win not against maybe a bit weaker players than Rubinstein, if I can say that like it, but it would be a win, or it would be a game against absolutely top player at the time of this game, because it was Rubinstein's game against Emanuel Lasker from 1909 from a famous tournament in St. Petersburg. And of course, as you know, in 1909, Emanuel Lasker was the world champion, and Akiba Rubinstein won a really very nice game against Lasker. So maybe it was a surprise for some chess fans at the time of this game, but as I have already mentioned, especially between years 1907 to 1912, I really do believe that Rubinstein would be able to defeat Lasker in the match and take from him the title of world champion. Okay, so let's see the game between Rubinstein and Lasker from 1909. In this game, Rubinstein started with d4, and after a few starting moves, c4 here, e6, and bishop g5, Lasker decided to play c5 in here, which is a typical move, sure, but especially after active move bishop g5, c5 is maybe a bit risky for black, because this knight on f6 is already in alignment from that white bishop, but okay, of course it's still not a big mistake, and Rubinstein immediately took on d5 and played knight c3, of course. And after taking on d4 and taking on d4, we can already see that here white has 3 pieces activated, but black only 1. So it seems that white is a bit better in here. And another thing is important, of course, in this position, and that is the fact that black has an isolated queen pawn on d5, which is of course not weak in the middle game. It is a strong pawn in the middle game, but of course later, after some exchanges of pieces, this pawn can be quite weak, and it is a weakness especially in endgames. And here Lasker should probably have played easy continuation on bishop e7, then short castles and so on, with a normal position. But instead, after knight d4, Lasker decided for knight c6, and after e3 and bishop e7, Rubinstein made another active move here, bishop b5. It is quite an interesting situation in here, because usually if you play against isolated pawn, I mean queen isolated pawn in the center, the more active side is the one with that isolated pawn. But here you can see that white is really active. He's already attacking black's position, and black has already some troubles in here, because of course he has to defend hanging knight on c6, and that is not so easy, because after bishop d7, which was played by Lasker, and in fact there is no better move in here, Rubinstein took his chance, and after exchanging on f6, he just took on d5, and white is suddenly a pawn up. So this is I think not a big typical situation. I mean that an isolated queen pawn is down after only several moves. It is usually much longer. It usually takes, let's say, 20, 30, sometimes even 40 moves to take that pawn. But here white took it after only few moves. And Lasker took on d4. So now suddenly white has got an isolated queen pawn on d4. But of course it is a pawn up, so it's quite a big difference. And Lasker made a very good move in here, bishop g5, because of course black is a pawn down, so he needs to be active as much as possible. So Lasker immediately starts his own counterplay, and he's attacking both knight on d5 and pawn on g2. And for example, after knight c7, and in fact for the first view, queen g5 seems a bit odd because white has forks on c7, but in fact this is a mistake, because after king d8, taking on a8 and taking on b5, white is an exchange up, but the problem is that knight on a8, which is trapped here, and it is really probable that this knight would be lost. And after that, black has, or better to say, black would have two pieces against a rook, which is usually a good business. And furthermore, and maybe much more important thing here is that at the moment white cannot make castles, because black queen has one square under control, and rook e8 is really an unpleasant threat by black. So this is not a good idea for white. So after queen g5, Rubinstein decided for taking on c6, and after bishop c6, knight e3. And here taking on g2 is maybe fine, but it is a bit risky, and I think not too many players would make that move. But the truth is that the right move was short castles, and after castles and rook d8, black has quite a good compensation for a pawn. Maybe not absolutely enough, but a good one, because his pieces are really active. Only one move is missing to activate all black pieces, and I believe black should be almost fine in here. But after knight e3, Lasker decided to play, it seems, even a better move, and it is long castles, because after long castles, black rook is immediately activated on d file. It is attacking pawn on d4, and of course maybe also queen on d5 one. And after castles and rook e8, all black pieces are nicely activated, and of course black is threatening taking on e3 with a checkmate on g2, which is of course very strong and very unpleasant for white. So what should white do? And I believe that in this situation Lasker was really satisfied, and he believed his position is okay. But Rubinstein found a beautiful idea how to continue to play for a win this game, this position, and how not to lose the advantage which he's got in here. And he played rook c1, which is logical. It is activating white rook, and of course trying to attack black king. And after taking on e3, Of course, white cannot take because of checkmate on g2, but the idea of rook c1 was to take on c6 with a check in here. And after taking on c6, it still seems black is really okay, because after taking on e3, black is taken with a check, then he's taken on d4, and black is just fine. But here, a beautiful move was played and made by Rubinstein, and it is queen c1. And Lasker himself was really satisfied with this move, and he commented this move as really one of the most beautiful moves he ever seen in his chess career. And it is really an awesome idea in here. And black has more options in here. For example, rook e5 is an interesting one, but after all of them, white is better. Black decided for taking on d4 here, and after taking on e3, rook d7, taking on c6 and king d8, it still seems that black is not so worse in here, because okay, he's still a pawn down, but on the other hand, he's attacking pawn on e3. It is not so easy to defend this pawn, and also of course rook d2 is probably coming with a very strong attack against g2, b2, and of course black rook is going to be really active on the second rank. But Rubinstein made another brilliant idea, another brilliant move in here, and it is surprising rook f4. And with this move, Rubinstein is not only covering pawn on e3, but also he's attacking black king, and he would like to checkmate the king, because he's threatening check on a8 with check on e4 or c4, and suddenly black king would be after decisive attack in here. And another problem is that check on d1 is in fact useless for black, because after king f2 and let's say another check, king e1, black cannot take even on g2 because of rook d4, another very nice idea. And of course after taking on d4, white is just taking black queen, and he's got decisive material advantage. But after king e7, black king is just checkmated on d8. So after rook f4, black played f5, but after queen c5, with another checkmating idea, knight f8 and rook c4, black in fact has to play queen e7, exchanging queens. And after taking on e7 and taking on f5, white has got a rook endgame on the board with 2 pawns up at the moment. But of course black is going to take one of white pawns, but still Rubinstein was very right about the fact that this rook endgame is winning for white. For you know the phrase that all rook endgames are drawing. This is an exception. This is really not a drawing rook endgame, because after rook d1, white played another really strong move and precise move, king f2. It is really important to activate white king as soon as possible. And after check and taking on b2, black played rook a5, of course. And of course here white rook is just perfect, because it's covering pawn on a2 and at the same time attacking black pawn on a7. After rook b7, another very nice move, rook a6, was played by Rubinstein. And with this move, white rook is just on its best square on the board, because not only attacking and covering pawns, but also covering the 6th rank. So black king cannot go farther than the 7th rank. And after king f8, e4, the problem is that not only black rook is more passive than white one, but white has a passed pawn in here in this position, which is decisive for him. After rook c7, another very precise move, h4 was played, because after king f4, it would be a premature activation of white king because of rook c2. And of course, after, let's say, g4, black just can take on h2. And after king f3, rook c3, you have got a big problem, because after king f4, rook c2, I'm just repeating moves, and you have to avoid this. So that's the reason why white started with h4. And after king f7, g4, king f8, and now white king has a free way into the center of the board. And after king e7, h5, as you can see, white is establishing as big advantage as possible in the position. And after h6, king f5, king f7, e5. I believe it is already visible that black just cannot hold this position, because white can go farther with his king through g6, sometimes to play e6. And of course, another idea is that after rook b7, because at the moment, in fact, black has to stay with his king on f7 to cover g6 square. Rook d6, king e7. Rubinstein one time repeated moves. And here after king f8, rook c6, king f7, and now it was a very nice end of this beautiful game. White just played a3 in here, and it is clear that black is in Zugzwang in here. He has no good move anymore, because, for example, after, let's say, rook d7, e6 is immediately winning. For example, after, let's say, king e7, white is going to play king g6 and check on c8, be taking on g7, and of course white is easily winning. For after king f8, very similar idea, king g6 check, taking on g7, and so on. And for example, after a5, rook a6 simply, and after check on a7 and a4, king e6, and check on a8 is coming, and then white passed e-pawn is just going to promote on e8. So Lasker resigned even after a3, because he understood that his position is just lost, and Rubinstein won a beautiful game against Emanuel Lasker. So I really do believe that this is a very nice example that Rubinstein was at least not a worse player than Lasker. He was at least strong enough as Lasker, and I just can repeat what I have said in the part 1 of this serial, that it is a really very big pity that Rubinstein and Lasker never had a chance to play a match for a title of world champion. So I hope you have enjoyed this game. You liked very nice ideas by Rubinstein in this game, especially rook c1 with queen c1 coming, rook f4, then the brilliant rook endgame, really instructive rook endgame. So I have to say this is one of my most beloved games, not only by Akiba Rubinstein. So thank you for watching, thank you for liking my videos, thank you for liking Royal Chess YouTube channel, and see you next time throughout part 7, which would be the last part of serial about Akiba Rubinstein. See you and thanks.